Welcome to the E-Show with Neil Ravin. With over 1,000 NCAA commitments, the EHL is the proven path to college. Turn it up and learn more about the college placement leader at the Division II and III levels.
Welcome to the E-Show. My name is Neil Ravin. This is episode number 2, brought to you by Gel Sticks, the official training aid of the E-Show. I'm going to bring in now our co-host that I had on last week. I have on again this week. We'll start with Brittany Hart. Brittany is almost like a communications assistant for me throughout the season. And then Jeff Mills, a name that you probably will recognize from Hockey TV, calls a number of games. You'll hear his voice coming up this weekend at the Showcase in Exeter. So let's welcome you guys into the E-Show. Did you make it through the holiday break?
Somehow, some way.
Yes, I did, Neil. I actually, honestly, had like a little too much rest and was getting restless towards the end of the break. So I'm excited to get back to a nice jam-packed Showcase weekend. Got 10 games I'm going to be broadcasting, so I'm pumped.
And you've already called some games, right? How many games have you called in 2020?
2020, let's see, last weekend did the USPHL. They had a showcase, did 3 games for them. Popped over to Bentley for a couple basketball games, Northeastern for a basketball game. So I think I'm around like 6 broadcasts right now because I do PA and play-by-play for.
Oh, that's 6 times me. I had just one. I had UMass Boston versus Albertus Madness. So you're way ahead of me so far.
And that was Peter Belisle's 200th win, I believe, correct?
Yes, it was the beginning of the Codfish Bowl, which they unfortunately for them did not win. But hats off to Wesleyan. There was a number of EHL players that played in that Codfish Bowl and scored their first collegiate hockey goals also. So it was pretty cool to be a part of.
And congrats to Coach Belisle as well. We get to see him at the Showcase as well. That's a great accomplishment. I know he's had a huge effect on a lot of coaches and players that have came through the EHL. And it must be an awesome honor, Neil, to be able to call a game of that magnitude.
Yeah, for sure. We've run coach with them because of the All-Star Week that we had. And we're now going to transition into the Around the E-Show segment. A little different look to our podcast this week.
It's time for this week's segment of Around the E-Show.
So we did this at the end of last week's show, and we're actually going to jump right into things with the team that we are featuring on the podcast this week. As we mentioned during the show last week, we're going to kind of bounce back and forth between the North and South conferences throughout the year. So the first team from the South that we're going to feature on the E-Show podcast will be the New Jersey 87. So let's welcome in first Matt Kiernan.
Good afternoon, Neil. I appreciate you having us on the show today.
Thank you, Maddie. This was kind of your idea, too, to help spark this, so I appreciate that. Joined by Maddie will be Adam Houli, the head coach and GM.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having us.
And then one player from the team, Andrew Maynard. We can call him Moose on the podcast, right?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
You'll go by that one. So coming out of the holiday break, a home-and-home series separated by a few days with the New York Apple Corps. How do you like where your team is at right now, Adam?
I feel pretty confident. The break came at a good time for us. We were banged up with a few injuries. We started to get hit with the sickness, which we're still fighting a little bit, but everyone got home, so got to see their family, and when they got back, they were pretty rejuvenated for a couple of days of practice. We had a good game against them on Saturday. They took us to overtime, but overall, it was a good game for us. We did the little things. We had a different lineup than usual, so some of our depth guys got some more time. And again, tomorrow, we get Moose back in the lineup. So we get some guys back that were, a little longer in their travels. So we feel pretty confident. Skate today was very good. So we're excited for to get another game under our belt. And then, we have one more before the Showcase and finish the second half in a strong way.
And Moose, so unlike a lot of players on your team, actually most, you got to play for the Austin Bruins in the Null. What was that experience like? Not really taking a break, but going out to Minnesota.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. It's so professionally run over there, and I got to go in and practice a couple times and got thrown right into the lineup. Got to play 2 games.
And Matt, I want to ask you a question about now you guys are officially in year 2, and you guys, again, are having great success. Me and Neil and a lot of different broadcasters and coaches and staff have always talked about the success that you guys have had as a expansion franchise. And we see that across the league. I mean, you look at teams like the Worcester Railers, the North Carolina Golden Bears, some teams that have came into the league in the last few years, and they've really struggled in their first couple years. But That was not the case with you guys. You guys have just flawlessly entered into this league. What do you and Adam and the bunch down there, attribute to your success that you guys have had these past 2 years?
For us getting into this, we're a product of the way in which we entered the league. The requirement that we had to spend a year at the premier level before we elevated up to the EHL allowed us some room to grow, to learn, to borrow, to steal from our competitors, and see what works and what doesn't work, and also to improve upon a process that we created. So I hope in the future that a lot more organizations follow that blueprint, because I do think that is a big reason for our success.
Well, off of that, the year in the Premier Division, was there, one or two things in particular that really stood out that you were like, thank God I got to experience this first before we made it up to the EHL?
I would say that the preparation, the game day preparation, is very, very high at the junior level, and that is a great learning experience to be able to do it at that level. And then obviously you build upon it, you fix the things that aren't working, you add new things, and I think that's another thing for us. We are process driven, but we understand that the process is always evolving, and I think it was great to cut our teeth at that level first. And we still continue to learn and improve upon everything we do every day here at both levels.
Neil, I think also what we do so well, and we have to, is that me and Matt are both co-owners, but we're also co-coaches. So we literally live and breathe this thing as much as possible, and our success is based on what we're willing to do and what we're not willing to do. So I think just being both that, understanding that your livelihood is based on how well you do, how well you recruit, how well the experience is for the players. That is a big thing for us. And every day, the decisions we make from the business side to the hockey side are so intertwined. It kind of puts us in a position that we have to be successful, and that's why we are successful.
And one thing that guys don't know is you share an office with an NA organization also.
Yeah. And again, those guys have been instrumental in kind of the process. There are two coaches who actually have coached in the league before, so they understand our league. They understand how to be successful in what we're doing. So having that as your sort of backboard is an awesome opportunity and also learning experience. We sit there and we volley back ideas, and we just talk general hockey and even the business side of it, of what works and what doesn't work. From Coach Matt said, the travel, the game day operations, it's all about the experience. And even Moose said it about being out in Austin. It's professionally run. That's what we're trying to do here. We want our players coming here and understanding how professionally run we do things. And it can go from as little as washing their practice gear right after our practice and getting it back fresh to them to when we travel. They don't have to worry about anything except their equipment. So just the little things I think have really separated us from our competitors, and hopefully that continues and we continue to grow as a club and grow as a successful program.
Hey, Andrew, Jeff Mills here. Just want to ask you a question. It's no secret that you've made a huge jump on the stat sheet. Last year, 22 points for you in 30 games, 6 goals, 16 assists. This year, season's not even over yet. You already have 20 goals, 23 assists, 43 points in 25 games. Did you work with Coach Houli and Coach Kiernan on something in the offseason? Did they, talk to you about working on specific parts of your game that's, allowed you to excel to this high of a level in year number 2 at the 87s?
Yeah. I talked with them a lot about getting in shape for the next season and how to work on scoring and all that. And I just did what they told me over the summer. And I came back this year knowing all the systems. And I think I was a beneficiary of knowing the structure and got some points out of it. And
yeah, I think
And what specific things did you do, Andrew, actually?
I was just going to mention, I think what Moose does well is he believed in what we said, and he believed in who he was as a player. He wasn't someone who was going to, I don't want to use the word chase it, but he knew in the summer he had 2 goals in mind. He let us know from the start that that's what he wanted to do, and he wasn't going to be influenced in any other way. He knew the type of school he wanted to get to. He knew what the league was doing. So I think he really paid attention in his first year with us and just grew a tremendous amount, both maturity-wise in that summer off-season. That was a big indicator, and again, we didn't really talk too much about kind of his off-season regimen as far as working out and skating, but as far as his sense of maturity, I think that was one of the biggest things we talked about, and that's what really showed and why I saw the boost with him. But I didn't mean to cut you off, Moose. But just one of the biggest things I thought I noticed from a coaching standpoint.
And off of that, for Andrew, obviously you committed the Tufts for next year. It was kind of almost done when we got to the All-Star week, but once the All-Star week kind of progressed, it became an official thing. How is that process with Tufts and Pat Norton, and how excited are you for next year?
Oh yeah, I mean I think we're both really excited for putting together the team next year, and we have a couple other EHL commits on that roster too. So I think it'll be great going into the season, knowing some people, and we're just really excited to get going.
And Maddie, having returners coming back for year 2 like Moose, what does that mean for the younger kids coming in who don't really know about the systems yet and everything like that?
It's not only just the systems, it's everything you have to do on and off the ice to make sure you're operating at your highest level throughout the season. And the guys that come from U18 hockey, they might play a lot of hockey games, but very, very few of them have the intensity level of just your random Wednesday EHL game. So that's a big adjustment for them. So when they see guys like Moose preparing the right way, taking care of his body, never missing a workout, never missing the ability to eat right or to hydrate and to treat it as a professional, it rubs off. And then when they say, oh man, look at Moose, he's committed to Tufts, I would love to go there. Look at the stats that he's put up. It's very, very easy for players to follow our veterans because they do set a great example. So I think that's a big thing for the guys that have been through it. They learn, they understand when their bodies kind of failed them the previous year, and they don't want to have that happen again. So they make a lot better decisions throughout the season.
And that's a good transition because you guys have returners across the board, EHL and EHLP. And Adam, I have to ask, I know this may sting a little bit, but I know there's some motivation for you guys this year based off of the recent years, what's happened to you in the postseason. Is that like the number one motivating factor for both of your teams?
Yeah, I think for me, when I go to bed at night, it's certainly on my mind that Providence is where we want to be, and it's where we expect to be. It's where we demand our players to get. I don't think it's the number one motivation, but selfishly, it is the last thing I think about before I go to bed, and certainly something I mention to the guys, on a daily basis that we're thinking about. Obviously, last year we had a good year. We had 2 teams have an opportunity, came down to game 3 to get to Providence, and frankly, we failed. We went 0-2 in that Sunday, a dark Sunday for us as a whole. But I think it leads us into the new beginning now, where I think our veteran guys who returned realize, wow, we had a real opportunity to get there. And you can just feel it this year. It's a different vibe. We know how close we got to, and now we want to get there. So you really start to see why veterans are so important to your lineup, because it helps transcend your message to the locker room. I think that's the biggest thing. And frankly we want to be, this year, we want to be on a Sunday, similar situation, but we want it to be in Providence. So it's definitely a driving force for us, and the players know it. Both teams know it. Our focus is clear and concise, and we know where we want to be, and we're not shy about it. We want to be there. We're going to do everything in our power to get there. And make sure that we're playing on the right part of the Sunday.
And question for you, Andrew, as far as, you've started out, like we said, you've doubled your points total, more than doubled your points total from last season. And you have, like Neil said, already committed to Tufts University. What's your mindset as far as A, keeping yourself focused, and B, trying to help the rest of your teammates do what Coach Houli just said and stay focused with the task at hand, which is continuing your rest of the season, regular season success, and then getting into the playoffs and making some noise?
Yeah, I'm happy where we're at right now. And like Maddie said earlier, I think I just need to keep doing the right thing and people will follow. And I don't think I do anything really that special except always try to do the right thing and follow the systems exactly how they are.
And Maddie, we've talked a lot about your EHL organization. We've talked a little bit about the Premier team. Looking at the Premier team, ranked number 1 right now in the power rankings, one of the hottest teams at that level. But one thing that kind of stands out to me is with 5 losses, 4 of them have come in showcase play. Can you attribute that to anything in particular, or what stands out to you?
You don't want to give the guys ready-made excuses, because you want to have, guys understanding that it's difficult anytime you're on the road, but we've had some really, really difficult start times in the showcases, and we've had a really difficult timing schedule for the showcases. So I think that's been a real factor in our underperformance. One of our worst games of the year was, we jumped right off the bus and we had to play the Junior Rangers, who was one of the top teams in the league. If you had a different schedule, I think that game goes a little differently. But what we try to the guys to understand, that's part of playing junior hockey. There is difficult travel. There are obstacles, and you can overcome those obstacles by making sure you're following all the details in practice, making sure you took care of your body during that week leading up to those games, leading up to that bus trip. So it's those things that they're learning at the premier level. They haven't quite experienced it. So it's good to face that adversity at the premier level, because sometimes for our team, because of the depth we have and the types of players that we're able to attract to a premier level, not every single game is a dogfight for them. And they get away with some maybe poor habits and some poor play, and they're not penalized for it because simply they're stronger, faster, a little bit better than some of the teams we play. So I like going to those showcases, and we actually like facing the adversity and maybe the difficult travel conditions that we have. So we're looking forward to the next showcase, but same thing, we are going to have a difficult schedule, and we hope that we've learned from the previous ones.
And just to keep going with this, obviously Adam touched on it a little bit. You guys want both teams in Providence. You want the premier team to follow suit with the EHL team and vice versa. And you've been kind of using a unique hashtag throughout the year. If you don't want to talk too much about it, that's fine. But I think it's hashtag 2TIC. Is that correct? Or 1C. Is that correct, Adam?
Yeah, it's kind of been our moniker for what we do. And again, it goes back to what I said. It is, we're not shy about it. It stands for two teams, one city, and that's Providence. And that is the goal, and that is what we're here to do in the second half of the season. The first half of the season, we talk with both our teams, and it's about finding ourselves, what our identity is, who we are, the way we can play, the way we want to play. Now the second half, we shift our focus to, now we're starting to lock it in for playoffs and look towards the future in that. And in this league, again, if you're able to lock in a 1 or 2 seed, it's only a 3-game series that determines who goes to Providence and who doesn't. So the pressure that's on us to perform heightens. So, in my mindset and our mindset as a club, why not talk about it now so we ease that pressure and we don't have that elephant in the room of what we're trying to do. We're trying to send both our teams to Providence and give ourselves a kick at the can to hopefully win championships at both levels. So that's what it stands for. It kind of provides motivation for us as every time we see it, it's in our head. We're thinking it. We are big on, you see it, you believe it. It will come to fruition. So it's been a good thing. It's been fun to kind of think of those little Twitter handles and things like that to keep it going. But yeah, that's kind of what it stands for and what it does.
And now I have one last question, because you kind of just said it there, and I asked Rich DiCaprio this same question last week. How critical is the first round bye?
It's tremendous. It allows you to get healthy, to feel good, to get sickness out, and train an extra week in doing it. You're home. That first game is going to come at home, and you kind of are able to dictate when it's going to be played, and all the little factors that you can not have to worry about. You're able to handle it, so it's a tremendous thing. And it goes twofold. I think once you're able to lock in a 1 or 2 seed, you're allowed to again set up yourself for the future. You're allowed to get some P guys games at the EHL level. You're allowed to rest some of your guys who need some rest, who have really been carrying you throughout the year. Goaltending situation, you're allowed to get your goalies some more games, things like that. So it's a tremendous thing to try to lock it in, and that's what we're trying to do now. Last year, we're in a similar situation, and it took a little longer than we had envisioned to get there, and that's where I think we're trying to sign the difference for this year. Is that is our goal right now, is to get to that point as quick as possible, and this way we know when we're going to play, and obviously we'll wait to see who play, but it is our leading focus to get that number 1 or 2 seed so we can have that first round bye.
Well, there you have it, folks. They are the New Jersey 87s. Adam Houli and Matt Kiernan, co-ownership. Andrew Maynard, one of the leaders on the EHL team this year. A program that you have to watch at both the EHL and EHLP level, as both teams are in first place. And as we touched upon, it's 2 teams, 1 city. That's the ultimate goal for the 87s. They want both teams in Providence this year. Thank you guys for your time. So keeping With our Around the E-Show segment, we'll pick things up with what took place this past week in the EHL and EHLP. There weren't too many games, but the holiday break is officially over, and we had a pretty big upset in the EHLP, huh, Brittany?
Yeah, I mean, Cliff Graziano and the Renegades beat the Little Flyers, who, as we said, I think now they're tied for first place with the 87s. But Nick Graziano, who is our forward of the week this week in the Premier, picked up a few points. So I'm sure Cliff is pretty happy about that one. And the Revolution also swept their series with the Bridgemen.
And then for the 87s, it's just to touch on them one more time. They faced off against the Little Flyers. And I think you were saying that they lost the first game against them in the regular season, but they've won every game since?
Yes, correct.
So the top two teams right now in the Mid-Atlantic Conference, 1 and 2 in the standings, now technically tied. I think the 87s have a game in hand, but you would say that they're probably the two favorites right now to come out of that conference and make it to Providence. And then there was no games on the northern side of things in the EHLP, similar to the EHL. What took place in the EHL this past week, Jeff?
There was one EHLP game in the north.
Oh, yes. I apologize. There was the Lumberjacks and Chiefs. Good catch.
There you go, Brett.
And
Be on your stuff. Brittany Hart, ladies and gentlemen, always on her stuff.
What were you going to say?
For the games played in the Mid-Atlantic Conference, the 87s have 24 and the Little Flyers have 27.
So
and they're both
tied
at 40.
Yeah, they're tied with points. You have games in hand, and that's key because remember, in that conference for the playoffs, only 4 of the 5 teams make the postseason. So it's 1 versus 4 and then 2 versus 3. A simple best of 3 series. Winner goes to Providence. So you're going to get 2 teams right from there. I mean, don't want to look past anybody in that conference, but if you're the one and you get ideally what looks like the Renegades, it's probably a better option than 2 versus the Revolution. So we'll see how it plays out. So there was, I have to take it back, there was a game in the New England Conference at the EHLP level. I don't think there was one at the EHL level. Do you need to correct me again there, Brittany?
No, I think we're good.
I didn't mess that one up?
No mess ups. Continue on.
What else happened in the EHL, Jeff?
So we had a few games on the 4th. So Saturday, 3 teams got back, or 3 games rather, in action. We had some high scoring affairs too, Neil. 2 teams that were very important to watch out for in the second half. Team Maryland and the Philadelphia Little Flyers had themselves quite the tennis match, a 9-6 final. More of a baseball score there for Team Maryland. Or yeah, I guess a low scoring.
You could say battle. Three field goals to 2 field goals.
Yeah, exactly. So either baseball or football, whatever's your cup of tea. But Team Maryland currently sitting in 4th in the Mid-Atlantic, and then everybody knows Coach Catron and the Little Flyers. Last year's story that made it all the way to the Frozen Finals with very few regulation losses, and they're just getting back over 500. So those 2 teams, Team Maryland 33 points. That was a very important win. They're now only 1 point ahead of the Little Flyers, but the Little Flyers do have 2 games in hand against Coach Fusco and Team Maryland. And we had a couple other games in action. The 87s, who we just had on, Adam Houli and Matt Kiernan. We're doing a little dyslexia there, switching the first names. 87s took down the Apple Corps, but as Coach Houli said, they had to go into an overtime frame to take care of them. They ended up winning 5-4 was the final score in that one, and that was a little bit of a topsy-turvy affair as the 87s were up. Then they went down 2-1. The 87s stormed back, scoring 3 straight goals, and then the Apple Corps scored with just 28 seconds left. Francisco Martinez getting the game-tying goal. And then after that, in the overtime period, Dante Terramini got the game winner, and the 87s walked away with the win. But I'm sure first game back from break, it's tough. A lot of the guys have been off for weeks and weeks at a time. So, the 87s, if you look at that on paper, the 87s should have probably taken care of the Apple Corps pretty handily. But, and they say, as they always say, the game's there. You gotta play every game that's there and take every team with the importance that you would for the next. And a couple other games, let's see. The Philadelphia Junior Flyers won 6-1 over the Golden Bears. Revolution beating the Golden Bears 4-1. And then the Revolution winning again. So they had a 2-game series. 4-1, 5-0. Philadelphia Revolution winning that little series. And then yesterday, Little Flyers beating the Junior Flyers 4-3, and those are all the games we've had here in the new year, Neil.
And the matchup that I was really keeping an eye on, and Brittany can touch on this more, is that Maryland Little Flyers, because that's kind of your 4-5 matchup. And what's key about it is they're under 125 miles. So in that best of 3 series, you start at the 4 seed, go back to the 5, and then go back to 4 if you need to. And Brittany, if you had to pick today, who wins that matchup?
Oh, come on. All right,
No
A-Lo.
pressure, Britt. And remember, we're going to see all of these teams this weekend. This weekend and next. 2 big showcases.
My confident answer is the Little Flyers. A-Lo, if you text me and yell at me, I'm very upset. No, Little Flyers, and that is my final answer.
Well, and for Maryland, I think you were saying that one of the guys reached out to you, I think it was Tristan Mock, because as soon as I had put them in the power rankings, when was that? Back in November? They lost every game after that for a few weeks?
Oh, yes. Quote, don't ever put us in the power rankings ever again.
Is it cursed? I mean, I don't think it's cursed, but maybe it's just me.
For them, it's definitely cursed.
Yeah, and I think those power rankings go either way, don't they, Neil? So you see some coaches that have been pumped to get into the top 5, the Lumberjacks of the world getting in there for the first time in their existence. And then you get some other teams that are like, you know what? We just want to go under the radar and just keep us away from those top 5. So it's a little interesting, isn't it?
Well, that was your sleeper pick, right? The Walpole Express. Cody
Yes.
Campbell texted me. Cody, yes, he goes, do not put me in the power rankings. I go, well, like, if I don't have a choice, I'm going to put you in. But, for what's funny is Cody works with Justin Scuderi, who's our lead graphic designer also. And Justin said, make sure on the podcast you talk about how the power rankings work. So for those that are interested, it's a combination of who you've beat, who you've lost to, and what you've done lately. And what I like to point out to a lot of people is that in college football this year, you had teams like Clemson and LSU, who are playing in the national championship coming up here on Monday the 13th, who were undefeated, but they kept bouncing away from the number 1 and number 2 rankings based off of who they beat, what the score was, and all that. They're still undefeated, obviously, but I try and carry that same thing over to the EHL. I think the tough part for us when we make those power rankings is simply the parity in the league.
Yeah, and I think the parity is a very strong thing this year. We've talked about that numerous times at all the different showcases, and I think that it is a good and bad thing, like you're saying, Neil. But I think the power rankings are a great thing because it kind of, like you said, it's exactly, you did a great job of molding it off of the college football standard, and that's a very good analogy because I feel like it's very similar, and I think that is a good way as a coach to kind of to gauge yourself. And like you said, you have to see, all right, who have we played? How have they done? And then see how you can move on from there. So I see it as a good thing, but as I always say on my broadcasts, I have no dogs in the fight, so a little easier for me to say is behind the microphone than it is being a coach behind the benches.
Well, the text that I always like to send is I always type standings, then a greater than symbol, and then power rankings, because where you're at in the standings is obviously more important than the power rankings.
Absolutely.
I would say I would at some people right now, but I will not do so. I guess I will.
Well, if it wasn't a showcase this weekend, you wouldn't get chirped. Would you say it?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to get in trouble.
Well, that transitions us into what to watch for this week.
Before we wrap things up, here's what to watch for this week in the E-Show.
And as I just mentioned, we have our 5th and final league-wide showcase at the EHL level this weekend, Sunday and Monday. The rinks at Exeter Seacoast Spartans hosting the showcase. I asked you both, Jeff and Brittany, to give me 3 things to watch for each. I'm not sure who wants to start it off, but what's some stuff to watch for this weekend?
Well, I guess I will start. And just to throw in one little premiere thing before we go full EHL mode here.
Okay.
I think everybody knows that Rich and Chris have quite the rivalry going on with the Rangers and the Avalanche. And everyone knows. And
Yes.
this weekend, their premier teams face off. Not that either one of them are the head coaches, but they're still very much competitive. But the New Hampshire Avalanche have won 2 games against the Rangers so far. I mean, they still have 4 more left to play, but those are 2 potential teams for Providence. So that's one premier game to keep an eye out for this weekend.
And with those 2 guys in particular, yes, Chris Sarella and Rich DiCaprio do not coach the premier teams, but the second one of them wins a premier championship, they will make sure the other one knows. Well, I mean, Rich hasn't won an EHL yet. We don't want to cross that bridge too soon. But really, what I'm trying to say is the first organization to win both an EHL and EHLP, the first text will go to the other guy and say, "Take that," right?
Yep, absolutely.
And then it will go on Twitter,
Absolutely.
and then there will be gifts, and then it will just be a whole debacle on social media.
But remember, they'll also say, "We don't care. We're best
Yeah.
friends."
Yeah, we don't care. We're BFFs.
That is true. It's an eclectic bunch that we have in the EHL. They're all enemies one minute, and then the next minute they're all hugging and smiles and laughing, and it's all good. It's such as life.
It's inside the
Those
glass.
are the dynamic duo, though.
Yes. Yeah.
I think they're like the BFFs in the league. Would you not say so?
The close.
Rich and Chris?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so.
they definitely are.
They have similar pedigrees, backgrounds. Chris playing at Quinnipiac, Rich playing up at Niagara, so both playing for Division I schools, and yeah, I'd say they have a respect for each other on a playing level and a coaching level, and both have had their resumes speak for themselves as far as the success that they've had.
And each guy wants to beat the other one as badly as they
yes.
as they can. They won't admit it, but they want to beat each other. So that's a matchup to watch at the EHLP level. Thank you for giving us that one, Brittany, before we go full EHL mode here. Jeff, what do you did you already get the games that you're going to call this weekend at the showcase?
I did, Neil. I did. So I do have 3 things to watch for, and one of the things that I have to watch out for is the New Jersey 87s playing against the Vermont Lumberjacks, and that is going to be a late affair. I believe that is the last game we have on day 2. So they're going to actually end up playing the second to last game. So I'll have that for you. And then they end up playing against the Worcester Railers. First time they're going to see that team. And so that's one of my things to watch out for. It's first and only time that the 87s Lumberjacks are going to lock heads this season. So that could be something to watch out for as far as 2 teams that we've profiled throughout the podcast and talked about in conversations at the showcase as 2 teams that we may see in Providence. And number 2 point that I had was watch out for the Avalanche. This doesn't work out as well because I forgot that they only play day 1 and not day 2. I was going to say watch out for Chris Sarella and his showcase record. We mentioned back in the fall that they have a lot of trouble with showcases. They were 8-8 back then. They've since bettered their showcase record, but that was going to be my second point because, and as we saw with that interview too, Coach Houli and Coach Kiernan have mentioned that really does come into play. And obviously, you guys do things fairly. You can try to spread things out as far as teams and their proximity from the rinks and trying to put that schedule together. But also, I think it's a great thing because what Coach Kiernan said was these guys have to realize that that's part of life. That's part of the sport. Look at the NHL. There's a lot of teams that end up playing 3 games in 4 nights. You end up playing on the West Coast. You're traveling from city to city, taking trains, buses, airplanes. So I think that is a big thing for these guys to learn at a young level because if they want to continue to play at the collegiate and professional levels, that's just going to continue to happen. So that was point number 2. Watch out for the Avs and Chris Sarella on day 1. And then number 3 was going to be watch out for the East Coast Wizards. This is that time of year when they usually turn things up. Freddie Meyer and the bunch. Not so great in the last 10 games. 2 wins, 8 losses. They're 1 game under 500, but they did end up being that sneaky surprise team that made it to the Providence Frozen Finals last year. And can they do it again? I mean, they're in the thick of it in the standings, and they're really going to have to start turning things up, though, because they're 8 points behind the New England Wolves, 9 points behind the Walpole Express. You get the Spartans and the Chiefs breathing right down your neck as far as the 7th, the Spartans are in that last spot, in the 8th spot, so they're really breathing down their neck, only 3 points away. So Freddie and the Wizards really have to start amping things up, and that's going to be my last point to watch out for, Neil.
And Jeff just touched on it, the 87s versus Lumberjacks matchup. You kind of mentioned the Avalanche a little bit. Brittany, there's a matchup for the Avalanche. It's only one game of the showcase, but they have a matchup to watch on Sunday as well.
Yes, going back to the Little Flyers, they are a reoccurring theme today, I suppose. But we have a championship rematch, and that's the free game of the week on Sunday. So it'll be interesting to see. And like I said last week, the Little Flyers are a different team, but so are the Avalanche. So two very different teams compared to last year. I'm very interested to see how their two new teams do against one another.
I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I think last year's two teams combined for like 25 plus commitments. Is that probably sounds right?
Yeah, the Avs definitely, absolutely. When we got to the Frozen Finals, looking down at their line chart, it was the forwards were littered with the little college symbols all underneath their names, and that was actually, if you remember too, Neil, those two, I'd say they don't like each other that much. If you remember our broadcast down there,
You think?
things got a little chippy, and there was a lot of aggression on both sides. We had a lot of penalty calls and some disagreements with some referees, and the usual Avalanche Little Flyers duels. So that I'm actually very interested in. Luckily, that is one of the games that I will be calling this weekend. Avalanche Little Flyers. I'm lucky enough.
So you got both free games? You got the free game Sunday and the free game Monday?
Yeah, so hopefully the fans at home on Hockey TV like hearing my voice. I promise I'll bring the punch as I usually do and try to continue to entertain everyone at home, and we'll have some fun.
And, of course, the Avalanche, we'll touch on it, did win that meeting in Providence on Championship Sunday last year, part of their back-to-back titles. That was a 4-3 victory, though, as is both championships wins for the Avalanche. The first one against Revolution 2 years ago, Little Flyers last year. Each game was a one-goal game. So it'll be interesting to see with, I think there were 12 commits or so for the Little Flyers last year as well. So there are two totally different teams this year, but it's still the Little Flyers. It's still the Avalanche. It's still a championship rematch. So there's a few guys that are back on the rosters again this year that I'm sure for the Little Flyers side of things would love to get a tiny bit of revenge on Sunday.
Oh, I can think of a few.
And then the Avalanche would love to make it 3 straight dating back to March. And then do you have one final thing for us to watch for this weekend, Brittany?
I would just say watch out for the Rangers. I'm excited to see how they come back from break. Because I know Rich said they needed the break. And, I mean, they are on their 12-game winning streak. And they have the Chiefs in Maryland. So
2 games that they should win, but
right, I don't know if I was allowed to say
No,
that.
you could say that. I mean, you could say that they're the favorite. Like that's what it is. They're 25-4-0. Jeff, I think you said it last week. Were they 1-2-0 to start the season? Is that what it was?
Yeah, I think it was that 4th game of the year I had against Steve Brown, Eric Lynn of the Connecticut Rough Riders. I think they were 1-2. And the mind-boggling thing when I looked at that was my first game of calling of the season for them, was in those 3 games, I believe they had 7 goals for and 6 goals against. So we had Billy Girard on last week. He's one of the best goalies in the entire league. They weren't giving up goals, but they just couldn't put it in the back of the net. Then, of course, they I believe that was a 7-3 final. They got their they really got their stride against the Rough Riders in that game, and they haven't looked back since.
Yeah, so you're 1-2 going into that game, which means you lost the game in October and you lost the game in November,
right?
and that's it. Like
that's it.
That is it. I'm excited. They have a good month ahead of them. I am all riled up for their series with Vermont. It's going to be a good time.
They're like last year's Little Flyers team.
I can't wait to see Rich's energy on the bench. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
And last year's Little Flyers team set a league record with 40 wins in a year. For Rich, he's got 17 games left in the regular season. You got to win 15 or 16. Like you have to be nearly perfect down the stretch. I mean, if he kept going, you win the next 8 or so straight. Maybe you kind of gun for it. But this is actually a great transition back to the interview with the 87s. Is like we talked a little bit about that first round bye, and what was interesting talking offline with Adam about that first round bye last year is he thinks it actually came back to hurt him a little bit because if you remember, Wilkes-Barre Scranton Knights, they were the team they faced in what was the second round, and they had to beat the Apple Corps to, get to face the 87s, and they were kind of in playoff mode for a while down the stretch, and then that extra week of rest kind of hurt the 87s, and they fell behind in game one. It's such a short 3-game series that even once you tie up the series in game 2, you still feel like you're behind in the series.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a
I feel like
thing.
people have different opinions about it. I feel like some coaches love it, and some coaches are like, it could go either way.
Yeah, and I agree, Neil. I agree with Brittany that layoff. Rich said that they needed it, that they had some tired guys, and they've been running at such a full steam ahead. But that's what I'm wondering: is you had a 12-game winning streak. It's kind of play both sides of it. You want to, when you're feeling it like that, even if you are hurt and tired, you almost just want to keep going, right? I mean, taking 2 weeks off, it's almost like that winning streak came to an end because you have 2 weeks off. Then you just gotta boom, go right back into action. You gotta just blow doors and start to turn things back up. And every team at this time of year is trying to do the same thing. Luckily, they've padded themselves and they have themselves a good record. But those are the type of games that you have to look out for. Like Brittany was saying, as far as, can she say it? Yeah, absolutely. Because that's stuff that the Chiefs and the Team Marylands of the world are thinking. They're like, you know what? These guys are sitting in first place. They're fat and happy. Let's go in and let's knock them in the mouth. Let's try to get them. Let's try to get a win. Let's try to continue our seasons. And, a lot of those teams, we said the Chiefs are a team that's fighting for a playoff spot. They're battling with the Spartans. So I'm sure Neil Breen and the bunch down in Newington are saying that exact same thing.
And just to touch on the interview a little bit more, too, I find it funny. I think maybe it was just me, but Billy Gerard and Andrew Maynard, 2 All-Stars, kind of both have that same calm demeanor to them.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
They don't seem too flustered.
No.
And Billy especially, I think. And Maynard, Andrew, I don't know as much. I've talked to Billy more in between games, and I feel like the thing with Billy, too, being a goaltender, you notice that. Goaltenders are an odd breed. You have to be, right? To be wearing pads and stopping pucks that are 70, 80-plus miles an hour. That's just, they have something in their DNA and in their brains that the rest of us don't have. And I feel like when you see goalies, they tend to be a little different, and they also tend to be a little more calm because you have to be. I mean, you can't be a frantic type personality in the back of a net. You have to be that calming force on the back end because you're the last line of defense. And yeah, I sense that too with Andrew, as far as he seems like nothing really phases him too much, and he's just kind of that same tone throughout. And sometimes that works well as far as having a leader like that. Teams respond and players respond well to that.
And Brittany, this weekend at the Showcase, I need you to find out when the Moose nickname really started. I know he's a big kid, but I need to find out when Moose started.
Okay, me and my player personnel type antics will go on.
Well, she's the best.
Honestly, I don't know the answer. I'm surprised they don't know the answer, honestly. Oh, I forgot to ask them.
I'm surprised you don't know it already, too, Britt. You're always very in tune. You're good friends with a lot of these guys on these teams. So, I'm sure you'll figure it out this weekend.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like Billy Gerard is the most chill human. Like, he's so chill. Even in, like instances where he's, like, talking to college coaches, like, so chill. He's just relaxed. Moose is funny. Moose is a funny dude.
And they call them Moose on the All-Star team, too. Like, when we were doing the campus tours, like, guys that, aren't on his team were just, like, it was like, I don't know, that chemistry just caught me so by surprise. It was a good thing, though, of course.
Yeah. Like, I feel like if I called him Andrew, I'd be like, who am I talking to? Am I talking to Andrew Trimble?
Well, the question really is, when he gets to Tufts University, a high-end academic institution, right? Yeah. Will any of his professors be calling him Moose?
Doubt it.
I don't know, but Nordy called him Moose already.
I'm going to say I doubt it, Neil.
Okay.
Doubt
it. But Pat Norton, besides Sean Walsh, I know you're listening to this, Sean Walsh. How are ya? Pat Norton is one of my favorite college coaches. My bestie.
Well, here's what you can do then. Here's your second assignment.
Okay.
Talk to your favorite college coaches and figure out which team from the New England Conference they want to hear on next week's podcast.
Okay, Sean Walsh, hit my line.
Well, thanks, guys. That'll do it for episode 2. As we mentioned before, big showcase coming up this weekend in the EHL. Jeff's got both free games. I did not do that intentionally, but hey, it worked out
Thank
well
you, Neil.
for him. Little Flyers and Avalanche on Sunday, and the 87s and Lumberjacks on Monday. Just 2 of 18 great matchups that we have set at the rinks at Exeter, the home of the Seacoast Spartans, the 5th and final league-wide showcase of the year. So be sure to check out the full schedule at easternhockeyleague.org. And thank you guys, and we'll see you in Exeter.
Wait, can we pick our win for the second free matchup? I'm curious.
Oh, you want to do picks?
Yeah, just for that one game.
Are we gonna? We have to pick both free matchups then.
Okay, fine.
If we're gonna do this.
Okay.
Since you brought it up, you can start.
Okay. All right. LF, Avs. Ooh,
Yes.
Either answer I give is gonna get me hate.
You brought it up, so.
I know. All right, I'm going Avs. Alo, sorry.
Okay.
Second one, again, either answer I give is gonna get me heat off the yang. I want to know who Adam's gonna put in net.
Ian Greif.
Yeah. Okay. So if Ian, the Lawrence Academy prospect here, he was. I'm going them. We're gonna go them. Roll 7.
Jeff, you're calling both games. Do you want to make predictions?
I'm going to stay out of it. How's that?
Yes, that's a very professional way to go about things if you're calling the game.
Yes.
Well, Neil, what are your picks?
Ooh, I don't know. It's league professional.
See, like I caught you off guard last week with the Frozen Finals.
Yeah,
picks.
well done, Brett. Touche.
I am caught off guard by this one, but I will. I'm gonna go the same pick for the first game, Avalanche.
Okay.
But I will go against you with the second pick in Vermont.
Yeah,
And
catch heat from everybody in
that's fine.
the upper.
We always catch heat. I mean, we're not going to redo the Frozen Finals picks this week.
Not yet.
Nothing. There weren't too many games that took place this past weekend. But as I mentioned, those are 2 huge games to watch at the showcase. We can't wait to see all the college coaches there, to see our guys at the league-wide event for the 5th and final time this year. And as I mentioned, it's the Seacoast Spartans' first time ever hosting a showcase. Unfortunately for all the Patriots fans out there, there are no football games that you're really of interest of going on at the time, but there is a bar/restaurant with TVs for those that do want to watch football in between games. So thank you both of you for your time this week. We'll see you in Exeter.
Sounds good, Neil. See you then. See you then, Britt.
Thanks for listening to The E-Show. Learn more at easternhockeyleague.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, be sure to subscribe and get notified when next week's podcast is released.